Derrick Henry is a monster. A monster.
All right, time now for and he's physically a monster.
Yep.
Stories to start your morning. Tonight, the Tigers will face the Tigers for the College National Championship. More specifically, Heisman winner Joe Burrow and LSU up against Trevor Lawrence and Clemson. Nick, who do you think will come out on top?
Brandon, I get that LSU is essentially at home, and I understand that they're the Vegas favorites. With that said, Clemson's got the better quarterback. I believe they have the better coach and the more seasoned coaching staff. And they haven't lost in 29 consecutive games, yet they're still kind of flying under the radar. I like Clemson to win another national title. I like Clemson to upset LSU tonight.
I agree with you, Nick. The last game Clemson played, they beat the #1 team in the nation. You know, I feel like they got it wrong. Ohio State should have been ranked #1. They have a better all-around team. They're physical. Clemson to go around. They've been battle-tested, and they have a chip on their shoulder from being counted out by everybody by not being ranked #1, being that they haven't lost in 2 years. So I like Clemson.
All right, moving on. Patrick Mahomes, who led his team back from a 24-point deficit against the Texans, also became the first player in postseason history with at least 300 passing yards, 50 rushing yards, and 5 touchdowns. Nick, how impressive was Mahomes?
Jenna, Patrick Mahomes had 4 touchdown passes and a 131 rating in the second quarter. The Chiefs were down 24-0 with 10.5 minutes left in the first half. And they led at the end of the first half. That's never happened in the history of the NFL, regular season or postseason. It was, yes, the Texans melted down, and yes, Bill O'Brien did a lot of Bill O'Brien type of things. But the story of that football game was the best player in the entire NFL put an entire organization, a cursed organization at times, on his back and carried him to a dominating victory.
Whenever you throw for that many touchdowns in a quarter, and it's not surprising, everybody in the nation knew, like, that's Patrick Mahomes. That's what should happen when you have Patrick Mahomes. That lets you know about this player. It feels like his arm is a jugs machine. Whenever he let it go, the receivers know it's going to hit them in the chest every time. So whenever you have Patrick Mahomes on your team, you always have a chance to win.
All right, the Ravens' 12-game win streak came to a screeching halt against the Titans. Derrick Henry leading the way with 195 rushing yards, carving up that Ravens defense. Lamar Jackson struggled, turning the ball over 3 times. A disappointing end for a 14-2 team that was penciled in by many to go all the way. Nick, how much did this surprise you?
The Titans blowing them out and dominating the game the way they did, leading from start to finish, was very surprising. The Titans finding a way to win, taking advantage of a rusty Baltimore team, forcing Lamar to throw to the outside early, which he wasn't totally comfortable with, that didn't surprise me. I thought the Titans could keep this game close, assuming they didn't let Baltimore jump out all over them. Instead, the opposite happened. They jumped out all over Baltimore, but nobody thought they were going to win by 2 touchdowns, which is what they did.
What surprised me most was the way they've been explosive all year. I know they're missing Mark Ingram, but just it felt like their offense came to a halt. It felt like they wasn't in sync, and you never seen that from the Ravens this year in their defense. Their defense was their exclamation point on this team, and their defense folded. They knew Derrick Henry was going to get the ball, and they couldn't stop him like no one else in the playoffs did this year. So, yeah.
And a team that was perfect this season on 4th and 1 went for it twice on 4th and 1, which I think were good decisions, and failed both times. Just killers.
All right, on to the Vikings. They took on the 49ers. San Francisco defense was all over Kirk Cousins, sacking him 6 times, picking him off once. The Niners will now host Green Bay Sunday on Fox with a trip to Super Bowl 54 on the line. Brandon, is it time for everyone to acknowledge that the 49ers are actually a great football team? All season long, every couple of weeks, we were like, oh, is this the real 40? Are they for real? Now we're here. Are they for real?
They're definitely for real. And I might jump out. I'm going to jump out on a limb right now and say they're the best team in the playoffs right now.
Wow.
The way this front 4 yesterday controlled the line of scrimmage, or 2 days ago, I'm sorry, controlled the line of scrimmage, it was unreal. You know, it was so much for this defensive coordinator to get pressure with his front 4. He can play zone coverage all day. You can get in all the throwing windows for Kirk Cousins. You don't have to run man coverage and let Minnesota receivers beat you one-on-one. Minnesota got a touchdown early on the outside of Diggs, and it was like, no more. We're going to run zone. We're going to force you to throw in small pockets, and they couldn't. This defensive line played so great. They controlled the game. That was a highlight for for me, for the 49ers. And then this offense, man, they can run the ball. They can throw the ball. Shanahan does a great job of not letting the receivers just sit outside and have to beat one-on-one coverage. He brings everything in tight, and he beats them with just schematically, you know. So the way he just designs this offense to just get open with the receivers, get open with Kittles and the tight end, and the way Kittles buys in and blocks in the running game, they believe in this coach. This team believes in their self, and that's why I believe they're the best team in the playoffs right now.
Well, and while I won't go as far as say they're the best team in the playoffs, I have been as big of a 49er doubter as anybody. I said before the year I didn't understand why they were picked by Vegas favorite to make the playoffs. I didn't believe in the quarterback, and at every benchmark, they have passed with flying colors. They've lost 3 times this year. Once was in overtime to Seattle. Once was on the final play of the game to Atlanta. Remember that? The Julio Jones play, was he in, was he not? And the other was the 20-17 slugfest in a monsoon against Baltimore. Those are the only, they could have won all those games. Meanwhile, they whooped Green Bay, annihilated them 37-8. They got revenge against Seattle, and they beat New Orleans in a shootout 48-46 in the Superdome. They have as good of a resume as anyone. First 8 weeks of the year, they were the best defense in the NFL other than the New England Patriots. The last half of the year, the defense was not nearly itself. What happened? Well, Quan Alexander, Jaquaski Tarter, D. Ford, 1 or 2 or all of them missed time over those final 8 games. This was the first game since week 8 that all those guys have been together, and not shockingly, the defense was dominant. And the other thing that I have to give San Francisco credit for, because they have, of all the quarterbacks, well, Tannehill's probably the worst quarterback left, but Rodgers, Mahomes, and Jimmy G, one of these 3 is not like the other. They have the worst quarterback of the 3 teams that are the true contenders for a Super Bowl, but they also might have the best coach. With respect to Andy Reid, with respect to Matt LaFleur and Mike Vrabel, Kyle Shanahan, pardon me, what he does schematically, offensively, because he has 3 viable running backs, a great tight end, and a capable quarterback, even if Jimmy G is going to throw it to you at least once a game, everyone seems to be running open. Like, guys, they are such a difficult team to defend. And with all that said, I'll probably pick against them again this coming week because I've been doing it all year.
And you like to stay consistent.
But I do like to stay consistent. But with that said, they don't have a clear-cut weakness right now other than, can you rattle Jimmy G and make him make some mistakes? He made some mistakes in this game, and they still rolled. Aside from the one Stephon Diggs play, the defense pitched basically a shutout, and the offense did enough to give them a comfortable margin the whole game.
And it's a fun team to watch. You like to watch what Kyle Shanahan is doing with that team.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move on to Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers hosting Russell Wilson and the Seahawks from a frigid Lambeau. Told you it'd be cold, Nick.
Yep.
Picked this up in the 4th. Marshawn Lynch scored his 2nd touchdown on the night. Seattle gets within 5. It's 28-23. They would need to stop the Packers one more time to get the ball back, but Rodgers finds Devontae Adams for a big 3rd down conversion with 2:17 left. Packers would have to convert one more 3rd down to end the game, and so they convert one more 3rd down to end the game. Jimmy Graham with the 9-yard catch. Green Bay moving on to face the team we just talked about, the 49ers, in the NFC Championship game. That guy, Russell Wilson, is heading home. Here is Aaron Rodgers after the win.
One of those games where we know every possession is going to be really important, and it's going to be loud, but you know, this is where it gets really fun. There's only 4 teams left, and we're one of them, and we got a legitimate chance.
About as even keel as you can get up there on the podium. What was the key, Nick, to the Packers win last night?
One guy who's been there for over a decade and a few people who got there this year. The guy who's been there over a decade is Aaron Rodgers. If you watched Week 17 against Detroit, a very important game for Green Bay because the bye was on the line. They had the potential, maybe they could have been the 1 seed if San Francisco had lost, but they also could fall to the 3 line. Rodgers was missing every long pass he threw. Everything was an overthrow, overthrow, overthrow. And it was the culmination of 8 straight weeks of Rodgers playing very mediocre football. In this game, he was perfect. Not a single incompletion on balls that traveled more than 10 yards through the air. On 3rd downs, they threw it on every 3rd and long, and he was perfect on that too. An actual perfect quarterback rating, and they trusted him at the end of the game to not give the ball back to Seattle. We're not just going to run, and then punt the ball away. 3rd and 8, we will trust you to find Davante Adams. And in fact, Davante said after the game, Rodgers checked out of the route. It was supposed to be a quick slant. He told Davante what route to run at the line of scrimmage, and that worked. And then the play to Jimmy Graham, which brings me to the other people that were the keys. Matt LaFleur did something Mike McCarthy often didn't do, which is at the end of games, not play the clock, we've got the best guy, trust him to win it for us. The last time Green Bay played Seattle in a playoff game, the conference championship game in 2014, the crushing loss when Green Bay had a big lead early that a lot of people thought